Yes, yes, yes! Oh, you know what that sound means? Time for In the Paddock F1, Greeny and the Cheese. We are back after the summer break. Round 15 takes us to the shores of the North Sea. We're in Holland, baby. For the 34th time is the Dutch Grand Prix. Holland, known for its windmills, bicycles, dams, cheese markets. Home to Van Gogh, Rembrandt. What else you got, sir?
Listen, they have these delicious raw herring sandwiches, but that's not what I'm going to go with. It's the panakoken. The panakoken, it's like a pancake, but it's not a pancake, but it's not a crepe, and you put all that good food, and you shove it in there, and you wrap it up like a burrito. Anything you can shove it in and wrap it up, that's good for me. Put all the good food in there. That's what I'm talking about. What else you got?
All right, well, this ain't no travel show. This is an F1 show. And we're racing Zandvoort, 2.65 miles, 14 corners through the sand dunes next to the sea. 2 DRS zones. You give it the full beans for 60% of your lap. And oh, the Orange Army came out to cheer on their hero. But it was the team in Papaya that was dominant as Lando destroys the field 22 seconds ahead of second place Max Verstappen. Cruises to his second win in his F1 career. As I said, Max takes second. Charles Leclerc rounds out the podium in a surprise for Ferrari. We're caffeinated. We're medicated, Greeny. Good morning, sir.
Good morning here on the East Coast. As everyone is, I don't know, not surprised. What's surprising for me is that going into this weekend, we're talking about how McLaren's going to be dominant, which they kind of were, as Lando Norris wins his second ever race, second this season, in dominating fashion. You're talking about this time last year, or 2 years ago at least, Max was winning races by 15 to 20 seconds, and now he's losing races by 20 seconds. That's a 40-second turn of events we got going on here. It's massive, unbelievable what's going on from one year to the next. We'll get into all of that later, but this is all about Lando Norris and dominating the win. Mercedes wins 3 out of 4 coming in and can't even crack the top 6 in this weekend. Did not look great all weekend, and that's where we're at. It is a McLaren second half, although it's looking like it. Sergio Perez definitely showed a little more promise as he's kind of ended the first half with a little bit more promise than he did, at least, getting into these Q3s and trying to be more competitive. But even towards the top today, he wasn't competitive. The other Red Bull's not competitive. McLaren picks up, I think, 11 points in the Constructors, squeezing a little bit more, another 7 points Norris picks up over Max Verstappen, and we laughed about it a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, but now the reality is Lando Norris has a legitimate shot for the 2024 Drivers' Championship. How do you feel about a dominating win? Nothing crazy. There wasn't a 1-stop versus 2-stop here. We didn't see any kind of tricks or anything. Max comes out, takes the lead early. Lando comes back, lap 18, takes the lead back, and does not relent the entire way. Definitely looked like a McLaren weekend. Ends up being a McLaren weekend. What do we see today? What do we see?
Not a total McLaren weekend. Because they only got one on the podium when they expected to get both.
Hoping to get both. I don't know. Expected.
They expected to get both. They were looking at a 1-2. They said the car performance should give them a 1-2. That's what they said before the race. That's what they were expecting. A 1-2 finish. They didn't get it.
I think
it's not a total McLaren.
They're going to get a 1-2 finish. But still, Lando Norris' second win ever and this season. And McLaren is definitely, 30 points back in the Constructors now?
30 points now.
Hello. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about a Constructors race, and we're squeezing 70 points now in the Drivers' Championship race. Haven't seen it this close, even though it is far It's a big distance at 70 points, but we haven't seen it this close in a long time heading into September. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was being a little overdramatic with the McLaren weekend. But how do you see it, Cheese? How do you see it right now overall and this weekend in Max's 200th race? And you thought he was going to win it. A little magic there in number 200, but it didn't happen.
No. McLaren was far and above, has the best car on the grid. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Everybody knows it. That's where it is. Just absolutely dominant, i.e. of a Max fashion as he just cruises to, almost 23 seconds in front of the rest of the field. So, and I don't know really if Red Bull's going to really get that many developments to get the car going, because they brought developments and it seems like the car is just absolutely stalled. They can't get any that much more pace out of the car. So, looking at that, I would put my cash on McLaren right now to win the Constructors, hands down. Hands down right now. Plus, Perez is not putting up the finishes that Red Bull would need to compete in that group right there with the, to get the points total. So, McLaren's putting up
uncompetitive.
It's just uncompetitive. So it's just not, you got that. So you're only really getting points out of one driver instead of two. McLaren's getting points out of two drivers right now. And not just points, high points. Top 5 finishes points. So I'd even say probably next weekend at the Temple Speed in Monza, McLaren will possibly leave that weekend in first place in the Constructors, which hasn't happened since what? Spain in 21?
Yeah.
Since the last time Red Bull was not in first of the Constructors, which is absolutely insane, but that's pretty much where it is right then and there. Red Bull has brought upgrades, but their car has not gotten better. McLaren is bringing upgrades, and their car continues to get better. So there's a lot more room for improvements apparently on the McLaren than the Red Bull design was for this season. So Red Bull's in trouble. They're not. I really don't see them winning the Constructors at all. No chance. Not right now, especially if you got Perez, who can't put up. He's got to put up top 5 finishes, and that's not happening. And that's not happening.
Yeah, I believe only 3 or 4 top 5 finishes in 15 races.
He doesn't even have to. His concern is to even get out of Q1 and Q2 at this point in time. For God's sake.
No, he's gotten better. Let's be honest. The last couple races, it was pretty bad. He had that, I think, 7 straight races at some point this season after Miami, where he finished, I believe, started in the top 5 in Miami. I think since then, between then and just before the break, he had a long stretch of just barely getting out of Q1, and now he's definitely getting into Q3 again, the last, I believe, 3 times in a row. So we'll see how that changes the landscape. But this is not about
last 2 races only.
I apologize. Last 2 races in a row, I'm being over generous.
If you recall, he crashed out in Hungary in qualifying.
Yes.
So let's not toot that horn that he's totally changed that around.
But
let's not go there yet. He's still struggling.
Well, he's not driving an Aston Martin. He's not driving an Aston Martin.
No.
And we talk about him like he's driving an Aston Martin, not a championship caliber or a leading, both at the moment in the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. Red Bull is leading. Right? If you came from another planet and looked at this, you'd be like, wow, Red Bull's having a pretty good year.
Yeah.
If you didn't know nothing about Formula One and just looked at the numbers, looked at the paper champs, as you like to say, as they are sitting there in the top of the Drivers' Championship and the top of the Constructors' Championship. Is that going to change? Very potentially. You very much believe so. I am not so certain at the moment that Red Bull can't make a comeback, that Sergio Perez can't not compete for a podium. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's possible that if Sergio Perez turns around and him and Max are once again competing for podiums and double podiums, even if Lando's winning, but or someone else is winning, but they're putting two cars second and third, that's going to start catching up. That's going to start at least giving them the lead, which they already have. But yeah, as they're saying, by Singapore, we might see a new constructors easily. You're saying it might be happening next week? But the way Monza's built for this McLaren team, we could see a McLaren 1-2 and Max Verstappen coming in third. And if we see that, that's going to be. I got to do the math real quickly. But what is that? 18, 15. So it's 3, 7, 10. It's still going to be, a 20-point lead, even if it's 1, 2, 3 McLaren, Red Bull. Which I still think, at worst, that's where Max Verstappen's going to fall in Monza. But maybe we're all, hyping up Red Bull too much, and maybe Max Verstappen is just proving how great of a driver he is in what might be the fourth best car on the track in Red Bull. Maybe not this weekend, probably the third best car on the track. And I'm sure we'll get to Ferrari and their weekend, which haven't even touched yet. Mercedes, like I said earlier, disappointing weekend in many regards after winning 3 of the last 4 races. And, on paper or at the end of the race coming in 1-2 to close out the season before those penalties.
If you look at a lot of the grid, it depends on the track when you show up. It's, certain tracks a car's better than on this track versus the next track or something like that. So, but the only car that's been consistent at every single track is the McLaren. They show up and they're just fast everywhere.
Consistently good
Consistently
everywhere.
fast
Even though they
everywhere.
haven't won, this is only the third win of the season for them. Mercedes has 3 wins. Ferrari has 3 as well, or 2. Ferrari has 2. And Red Bull has 7. But with all those numbers, what's amazing, and the Sergio Perez factor is so huge, that you have Red Bull with 7, McLaren with 3, and they're right on their heels. And that just shows how poor Sergio Perez has been this season. Speaking of this season, I appreciate everyone for telling their friends to listen to the show. You have told your friends. We have tripled our listenership this season. We're looking to triple it again, Cheese. Let's triple it again, because
do it
you should
again.
Tell your friends, and please, yeah, if we do it again, we're going to might be able to quit our jobs if we triple it again. In the paddock USA at gmail.com. Hit us up. We're going to be back on YouTube. This is the first episode back in a while on YouTube as we get back to reality a little bit here, as I'm back from my 5 months of hell every year. But I am back for the next 7-8 months for sure, back with you guys in a much deeper capacity to be able to start getting some more content up there. Probably back on the social media a little bit. Definitely get back on the YouTube, simulcast everything. And who knows what other treats we could have for you guys as we continue on probably the most exciting season we've seen since maybe 2012 in the sport. Probably. That's where to go back.
Probably.